The night was quiet on Earth, but far beyond the skies, something strange had already begun. It started with a signal, a thin, sharp transmission that slipped through the endless darkness of space and struck Earth's satellites without warning. At first, no one knew what it was. The sound was unlike anything ever recorded. It was not music. It was not noise. It was a voice, in a dark control room filled with glowing screens. A group of scientists listened in silence. The voice was cold, deep, and carried no emotion. Every word felt heavy, like a command written in stone. People of Earth, you will join the Alliance. Refusal is not an option. A war is coming. You will fight with us, or you will be destroyed. The room fell into silence. No one breathed. The message repeated again and again, until the scientists quickly cut the feed. They stared at each other, pale and shaken. Humanity had dreamed, for centuries, of hearing from life beyond the stars, but not like this. Not a threat, not a demand. That news spread faster than fire. Within hours, every government, every military, every leader across the globe had heard the same words. The Alliance, whoever they were, had spoken with arrogance, as if Earth already belonged to them. For ordinary people, it felt like a nightmare. Radios, televisions, phones all played clips of the alien voice. Crowds filled the streets, staring at the sky with fear in their eyes. Children asked questions their parents could not answer. Were there aliens already here? Could Earth defend itself? Was there even a chance? The leaders of Earth gathered in secret. In dark halls, generals whispered to presidents. Scientists explained that the transmission came from a point just beyond the moon. Something huge was out there, sending messages as if it had every right to command. At first, many leaders thought surrender might be the only choice. The aliens were advanced. They had traveled across stars. Earth was young in space, barely reaching Mars. Against such power, what hope could humanity have? But then came the first real decision, and it was not one of fear. One voice rose in the silence of the meeting, a quiet but steady voice. If they want soldiers, let them look elsewhere. Earth will not fight their war. The room froze, eyes turned, heads shook in disbelief. But slowly, one after another, more leaders agreed. Humanity had fought its own wars for centuries, endless battles against itself, and yet, never before had the whole planet been asked to fight in someone else's war, for someone else's empire. They said, Earth refuses. It was the first time in history that all of humanity spoke with one voice. The response was sent back into space. A short message, calm but clear. Earth will not join. We will not fight your war. For a moment, there was hope. Maybe the aliens would understand. Maybe they would respect the decision. Maybe they would move on and leave Earth alone. But deep inside, everyone knew the truth. The voice had been too cold, too certain, too commanding. The Alliance was not asking, they were demanding, and those who demand never accept no. In the days that followed, life on Earth changed. News anchors spoke with forced smiles, but their eyes betrayed fear. Military bases went on high alert. Scientists scanned the skies every hour, minute, waiting for the next signal. Families stockpiled food. Streets grew quieter at night, as if the whole world was holding its breath. Then came the second signal. This one was louder, sharper, filled with anger. Earth has refused. You defy the Alliance. Prepare to face the price of defiance. The words hit like thunder. Entire cities froze in fear. The message was broadcast across every device once again, as if the aliens wanted all of humanity to hear it. To them, Earth was nothing more than a stubborn child, a planet too foolish to know its place. But humans felt something else stir inside them. Yes, there was fear. But there was also pride, defiance, a fire that burned quietly in the hearts of ordinary men and women. For the first time, humanity was united not in fear of each other, but in the shadow of something greater. Something was coming, something enormous. And yet, as the stars above seemed darker and the nights grew colder, the people of Earth whispered one thing to themselves: we will not bow. The mysterious signal had opened the door to a new age. The world knew it was only the beginning. The Alliance thought Earth would kneel. But Earth had already chosen its path. The signal was not just a message, it was a challenge, and humanity had answered. The days after the signal felt like a dream that no one could wake from. The whole world seemed different, quieter, heavier, as if the air itself carried the weight of what had been said. People walked the streets with their eyes turned upward, searching the sky for shapes that did not belong. News reports filled every hour with updates, but the updates were always the same. Earth had refused, and now the world waited. In homes, in schools, in crowded markets, people whispered about what might come. Some believed the aliens would leave, that Earth's refusal would be the end of it. Others were sure destruction was on its way. Fear and hope twisted together in every conversation, and no one knew which would win. Governments tried to calm the storm. Leaders gave speeches about strength and unity, about courage and resilience. But even in their carefully chosen words, there was doubt. Humanity had always fought itself wars between nations, between tribes, between beliefs. But this was different. This was not human against human. This was the universe pressing down on one small world. And for the first time in history, Earth stood against something far greater than itself. Above the blue curve of the planet, silent machines turned and listened. Satellites scanned the heavens, their instruments searching for movement. And one night, the movement came. It began as a faint shadow crossing the dark, a small signal, then another, then dozens more. Objects were moving beyond the moon. Slow, deliberate, massive. Scientists confirmed what everyone already feared. Ships, not one or two, but an entire fleet. The announcement hit like an earthquake. Crowds gathered outside government buildings, demanding answers. Panic swept across cities. Families packed their cars and fled to the countryside. Shelves in stores emptied in hours. Humanity had always feared the unknown, and now the unknown was coming straight toward them. Inside secret rooms, military leaders studied the scans. The ships were larger than anything humanity had ever imagined, each one the size of a floating city. They moved with precision, their formation perfect, like hunters circling prey. There was no doubt left. The Alliance had arrived. But Earth did not answer. No messages were sent, no pleas for mercy, no surrender. The silence was intentional. The whole world waited, holding its breath, as if daring the invaders to speak first, and they did. A deep voice rolled across every device once again, filling radios, televisions, and even the silent glow of mobile screens. Earth has refused. Earth defies the Alliance. Now you will see the cost. The words cut through every home, every heart. Yet strangely, beneath the fear, there was something else. A quiet defiance, a stubborn pride that had always been a part of humanity. The aliens believed they could break Earth with fear, but fear had never been the whole story. In villages and cities alike, people stared at the sky and whispered the same thing. Let them come. The first night after the ships were seen, the stars seemed brighter, as if watching. Fighter jets streaked across the skies in practice drills. Submarines moved silently beneath the oceans. In secret bases, weapons that had never been revealed were readied for the first time. Humanity was not united by choice, but by necessity. Old enemies shook hands, old rivalries were buried. For once, every nation looked outward instead of inward. Still, doubt lingered. Could humanity really stand against such power? Could technology built for earthly wars truly hold against fleets that traveled between stars? The questions haunted everyone, from the poorest worker to the highest leader. But there was no turning back now. The decision had been made the moment the first refusal was sent. The world grew quieter as the fleet drew closer. Cities dimmed their lights at night, trying to vanish into the dark. Scientists worked without sleep, their eyes fixed on screens filled with alien movements. Every whisper of static, every strange pulse in the signal made hearts race. And then, one evening, telescopes caught a terrifying sight. A new shape, larger than all the rest, drifted out from behind the moon. It was a ship, but no one on Earth had ever seen anything so massive. Its surface was lined with glowing veins of light, each one pulsing like the heartbeat of a monster. Its shadow stretched across the stars, blotting out constellations humans had known for thousands of years. The image was broadcast to the public. The world fell into silence as billions of eyes stared at the same shape. Children cried. Adults trembled. No words were needed. Everyone knew this was no simple fleet. This was a warning, a display of dominance. The Alliance had sent its carrier, its giant, its weapon of fear. But something strange happened. In the middle of all that terror, something flickered in the hearts of people watching. It was not surrender. It was not hopelessness. It was anger. Why should Earth bow? Why should humanity fight a war that was not theirs? Who gave these invaders the right to command? The questions burned stronger than the fear. That night, in the silence of the dark, a new kind of unity spread. Neighbors who had never spoken before shared food. Families held hands and made promises to endure together. Soldiers looked at their weapons with a new sense of duty. Humanity did not know if it could win, but it knew it could fight. Above them, the fleet grew closer, its lights like cold stars in motion. Earth waited. The calm before the storm had ended. Something was about to break, and when it did, the galaxy would learn what humans truly were. The world held its breath as the alien fleet reached Earth's orbit. The night sky changed forever. Where once only stars glittered, now dark shapes blotted them out, drifting like silent predators above the blue planet. They were vast, beyond human imagination, ships so large they looked like floating continents, their surfaces alive with streams of glowing light. Every telescope on Earth turned upward, but even without magnification, many ships could be seen with the naked eye, glowing faintly like new, unwelcome moons. People gathered in parks, on rooftops, in empty fields, staring upward with fear, and the fleet stretched across the horizon like a shadowy wall. The aliens had arrived, and Earth was no longer alone. But there was no comfort in that thought at first. The ships only watched. They did not fire, they did not move closer. They simply hovered in silence, and that silence was worse than thunder. Days passed. People slept little. They waited for something, anything. Humanity had refused, and now the response was here. Everyone wanted to know what would come next. The answer arrived one morning. Every screen on Earth television's phones, even the smallest devices, suddenly flickered. Static turned to light, and then the same voice as before filled the air, but this time it was colder, sharper, dripping with anger. Earth has chosen defiance. Earth will be punished. You will understand the cost of your arrogance. The message ended. The feed went black. A moment later, the skies above Mars lit up with fire. Astronomers were the first to see it. The small colony base, humanity's proud step into the stars, vanished in a flash of brilliant light. The explosion was so massive that telescopes recorded the blast wave rippling across the thin Martian atmosphere. The aliens had destroyed it effortlessly, as if swatting a fly. The news raced across Earth faster than panic could spread. Humanity's dream of reaching new worlds had been shattered in seconds. Families of the colonists wept. Children asked why, and everywhere, the same fear grew. If they could destroy Mars so easily, what would stop them from doing the same to Earth? But something unexpected happened. Instead of collapsing into despair, anger boiled. The aliens thought fear would break humanity. Instead, it lit a fire. People shouted in the streets, not in surrender, but in fury. Talk shows turned from panic to rage. Soldiers swore oaths not of defense, but of vengeance. The Alliance had made a mistake. They thought humans would kneel. Instead, they had provoked something dangerous, something even they did not yet understand. Military bases came alive. Hidden projects long buried under secrecy were rushed to the surface. Prototypes that had been laughed at as impossible were suddenly tested in the field. Generals and scientists worked side by side. Satellites were armed, defense networks activated. Every corner of Earth prepared, not for surrender, but for battle. Still, doubt remained. The ships above were so large, so powerful, that no human weapon seemed enough. People whispered that resistance would be hopeless, that the world would burn no matter what. Yet beneath those whispers, a quiet courage spread. Humanity had been underestimated for centuries by itself, and now by the galaxy. That was the greatest mistake of all. One evening, when the world seemed ready to break under the pressure, the aliens acted again. From orbit, one of the massive ships projected a beam of light, piercing the sky like a blade. It stopped in the clouds, and a voice thundered across the world once more. "This is your final chance. Join us, or be erased." The words carried no mercy. They were not an offer, but a sentence. But Earth's reply was silence. Not one leader spoke, not one nation broke. Humanity answered only by standing firm, and in that silence there was defiance louder than any words. The aliens expected fear. They expected begging. What they saw instead was the quiet, stubborn refusal of billions. Humanity's stillness was not weakness, it was the gathering of a storm. In small villages, old men sharpened tools as if preparing for battle. In great cities, workers welded armor onto experimental ships. Families recorded messages for the future, uncertain if there would be one. Everyone felt it, the turning of a tide. Humanity was not waiting to survive. Humanity was preparing to strike back. The fleet above shifted position. New shadows appeared as more ships arrived, filling the sky with unnatural constellations of war. The galaxy thought Earth would break easily. Instead, they had picked the wrong enemy, and somewhere, in the silence of orbit, on the bridge of one of the vast alien ships, commanders whispered among themselves. For the first time, they wondered if perhaps this small, stubborn planet was not prey at all. The first contact had been made, the first threat delivered. But what the aliens had failed to see was that Earth's greatest weapon was not its technology, not its armies, not its cities. It was humanity itself. And now, that weapon was awake. The destruction of the Mars colony sent shockwaves through Earth, but it did not break the planet. Instead, something deeper stirred. For centuries, humanity had fought its own endless battles, tearing itself apart over borders, wealth, and power. But now, for the first time in history, every human looked outward, not inward. The rage over Mars became a fire shared by billions. The aliens believed they had shown strength. What they had done instead was awaken something they could not control. War rooms beneath mountains. Generals studied the alien fleet. Vast holographic maps filled with glowing red icons told the story of a predator circling prey. But the humans in those rooms did not see prey. They saw a challenge, a puzzle waiting to be solved. Plans formed quickly, whispered in urgent tones, tested against simulations, and though their weapons seemed small, their determination was vast. Hidden hangars, ships that had never seen the light of day were prepared. Prototypes that governments once dismissed as too risky or too costly were suddenly priceless. Railguns the size of skyscrapers, stealth drones designed to vanish into the void, and missiles tipped with strange new technologies all were readied. No longer were they theories, they were humanity's only chance. But it was not only weapons that prepared ordinary people transformed overnight. Factories shifted from building cars to building armor plating. Workers drilled through sleepless nights. Farmers shared food with soldiers. Families sent messages to loved ones preparing to fight in orbit. Across Earth, a quiet unity grew, as if every person had accepted the same truth. Surrender was no longer an option. The aliens watched from above, their ships glowing like silent gods. They expected panic. They expected begging, but Earth gave them nothing. Cities did not burn, governments did not kneel, and for the first time, small cracks of doubt began to form within the minds of the invaders. When the first human strike came, it was not grand, it was not even visible to most of the world. A single satellite, thought to be harmless, suddenly came to life. Hidden inside was a weapon designed for a war that had never happened. With a flash of power, it launched a projectile that streaked across space and slammed into one of the alien frigates. The ship did not explode, but it staggered. Lights flickered. For the first time, an alien warship faltered because of human hands. The victory was small, almost nothing compared to the scale of the fleet, but to Earth it was everything. The world erupted in cheers. Across continents, people roared with pride. Humanity had struck back. The aliens responded instantly. Beams of energy sliced through the sky, burning through satellites, crippling communication networks. Yet even as systems went dark, the fire in human hearts grew brighter. News anchors spoke with voices steady and strong, reporting not with despair but with determination. "We can hurt them," they said. "We can fight." That message spread faster than fear, and the whole planet clung to it like oxygen. The Alliance had made a mistake. They thought destruction would end resistance. Instead, destruction fed it. As days turned into nights, the fighting shifted. Small human ships, built from pieces of old programs, darted into orbit. They were nothing compared to the vast alien carriers, yet they moved fast, sharp, and unpredictable, like wolves circling giants. Every skirmish was costly, but every skirmish taught humanity something new. The aliens were powerful, yes, but they were not perfect. They had blind spots, they had weaknesses, and humans, more than any species, knew how to turn weaknesses into victories. Above, commanders of the alien fleet grew restless. They had destroyed worlds before, crushed rebellions without effort, yet Earth was different. This planet refused to kneel. Worse, every attack seemed to make them stronger. The humans were not collapsing, they were adapting. On Earth, the people understood what was at stake. This was not just about survival. This was about showing the galaxy that humanity would not be controlled. Children drew pictures of rockets and soldiers on scraps of paper. Parents whispered stories of bravery at night, promising their children a future worth fighting for. Soldiers strapped on armor knowing they might never return, but with pride shining in their eyes. The Alliance had picked Earth believing it would be simple. They believed humanity would fold like paper. Instead, they had chosen a species that had risen from caves to cities, from fire to machines, through nothing but struggle. Humanity had been forged in war, in famine, in survival against impossible odds. Every scar of history now burned like fuel. When the next human strike came, it was larger. A fleet of experimental ships rose from hidden bases, their engines roaring into the dark. They carried weapons never before tested, technologies rushed into life by desperation and genius. The world watched as they vanished into orbit, small sparks against the massive shadows of the alien fleet. Minutes passed. Then came the first explosions. Alien vessels that had seemed untouchable began to burn one by one. Lights on the horizon flickered and died. Humanity was bleeding, but so were the invaders. From the ground, billions watched the skies ignite with silent flashes of battle. Fear still lived in their hearts, but alongside it, something new grew: a certainty. The aliens had chosen the wrong enemy. The war had only begun, but Earth was no longer the frightened child of the galaxy. It was something else now, something the Alliance had not prepared for. A species that would never bow, never break, and never forgive. And as the smoke of battle drifted across the stars, humanity sent its answer into the void, not with words, but with fire. The first real battle for Earth began not with a declaration, but with fire streaking across the heavens. Against the black canvas of space, tiny sparks of human ships shot forward, engines roaring as they raced toward the alien blockade. Compared to the colossal carriers and cruisers above, the human vessels looked like insects. Yet inside each one beat the heart of a soldier who had already decided, if death came, it would come fighting. The alien fleet shifted as the humans approached. Vast wings of metal turned slowly, precise and perfect, like predators, adjusting for a strike. Their weapons lit up, blue beams of power charging to tear the fragile ships apart. But before they could unleash destruction, the humans made their move. They darted, they spun, they scattered. Alien targeting systems expected order. They expected formation, discipline, structure. Instead, they were met with chaos. Human pilots moved unpredictably, twisting through space like wild animals. Ships broke formation, faked collisions, then vanished into clouds of decoys. The aliens fired again and again, beams carving empty space, missing their prey. On Earth, billions watched live feeds through trembling cameras mounted on satellites. Every time a human ship slipped past a blast of energy, cheers erupted in homes, in streets, in hidden shelters. Humanity had always fought with cunning, and now that cunning was on full display. One small craft, barely more than a shuttle wrapped in steel, streaked past an alien frigate and fired its payload. Explosions ripped along the enemy's hull. The frigate groaned, lights sputtered, and then the massive ship tilted into darkness. It was a single victory, one ship among hundreds. But to Earth it was the first blood. The humans had struck, and the galaxy had seen it. The alien response was merciless. Enormous beams rained down, cutting through orbit like blades of sunlight. Several human ships vanished instantly, reduced to ash and wreckage. The cries of loss echoed across command centers. Yet even as the dead were counted, more pilots rose to take their place. No one turned back. What the aliens did not understand was that humans had never fought wars expecting to survive. They fought knowing survival had to be earned, no matter the cost. That truth turned fragile ships into daggers, and frightened soldiers into predators. Hidden weapons activated from Earth's surface. Vast railguns dug into mountainsides, powered up with a thunder that shook the soil. Massive projectiles roared into the sky, glowing like meteors, and slammed into alien cruisers. Shields flared, cracked, then shattered. One cruiser split apart, fragments burning as they fell into the atmosphere. For a moment, night skies over Africa lit up with streaks of falling fire, and children pointed upward, not in fear but in awe. The tide began to turn. Human fleets pressed harder, using everything at their disposal: missiles, drones, even old satellites repurposed into weapons. They fought not with elegance but with desperation, and that desperation became their strength. Alien commanders found themselves overwhelmed by something they could not calculate: unpredictability on the ground. Engineers and scientists worked feverishly. Every captured signal, every scrap of alien wreckage was analyzed, repurposed, weaponized. Humanity was learning with terrifying speed. For every ship they lost, they built another faster. For every tactic that failed, they invented two more. The war was not only in orbit, it was in the minds of those who refused to stop creating. Above, the battle raged on. Human ships swarmed like hornets, striking in small groups, cutting into weak points before vanishing into debris fields. Alien ships still dwarfed them, still burned them in dozens, but the humans refused to fall silently. Every explosion of a human vessel was followed by the fire of vengeance. From orbit, one alien carrier prepared a massive strike against Earth itself, its weapons charged, light swelling like a rising star. The world below held its breath. Cities froze, soldiers prayed, but before the weapon could fire, A squad of human ships broke through defenses, diving straight into the carrier's core. They fired everything they had. The explosion tore through the behemoth, shattering it into a million pieces. The sky over Earth lit up with burning fragments, brighter than fireworks. A spectacle both terrifying and beautiful. Cheers erupted across the planet. For the first time, humanity had not only survived an attack, they had destroyed the invaders. Pride. The message was clear. Earth was no longer prey. In alien command halls, whispers spread. This battle had been expected to last minutes, maybe hours. Instead, days had passed, and still Earth fought on. Worse, the humans were not weakening. They were adapting, faster than any species the Alliance had ever faced. What began as punishment was turning into humiliation. Down below, families gathered in front of radios, listening to updates. Children clutched drawings of rockets, calling their parents heroes. Even as losses mounted, hope grew stronger. For every funeral, there was the vow of vengeance. For every destroyed city, the promise of rebuilding stronger. The aliens had chosen Earth thinking it would be an easy victory, but they had forgotten one truth: the human spirit had never bowed to impossible odds, and now, as smoke and fire drifted across the skies, the world knew something new. This was no longer a defense. This was the beginning of humanity's counterattack. The war was changing, and the galaxy was about to learn what kind of enemy humans truly were. The battle for Earth no longer looked like a punishment, it looked like a war the aliens had not prepared for. Above the planet, the once flawless formation of the fleet now showed gaps where human attacks had torn holes. Alien wreckage drifted silently through orbit, glowing faintly as it burned into the atmosphere. Each falling fragment became a symbol, proof that the impossible was possible. Humanity could fight gods and leave scars, but victory was far from certain. For every alien ship destroyed, dozens of human crafts had been lost. Families mourned across the planet, cities fell silent in grief. And yet, even through sorrow, Earth did not break. Loss did not weaken them, it hardened them. On the ground, command centers were alive with frantic energy. Generals leaned over glowing maps, shouting orders that echoed through corridors. Scientists scribbled equations, running simulations in seconds that once took years. Every moment was desperate, every decision a gamble. But desperation gave humans something the aliens had never faced before: unpredictable brilliance. Pilots who had survived the first waves told their stories, their voices steady with a strange kind of humor. "They think they've got us cornered," one said into a recording, "but they've never seen what happens when you corner humans." That recording spread like wildfire across the networks that still functioned, turning fear into laughter, laughter into courage. The next wave of attacks proved the point. Human ships, battered and small, darted in tight swarms. They moved so recklessly, so chaotically, that alien gunners could not keep track. Missiles exploded against weak points. In carriers, mines hidden in debris fields tore through patrol ships. Every trick, every scrap of cunning humanity had ever learned in its bloody history of war, was now unleashed in space. The aliens were powerful, but they were predictable. Their fleets moved with order, their weapons with precision. To them, war was calculation. To humans, war was survival. And survival had no rules. In one of the largest clashes above Earth, an entire squadron of human fighters sacrificed themselves, luring a dreadnought into the atmosphere where Earth's red could reach it. The dreadnought was torn apart in a storm of fire and steel, crashing into the Pacific with a roar that shook the seas. Billions watched the explosion live, and a single thought spread across every continent: we can win. The whispers traveled beyond Earth, across the galaxy. Other species watched, some with shock, some with awe, some with fear. For centuries, the Alliance had seemed untouchable, their dominance unquestioned. Yet here was a single planet, a young world, bleeding but unbroken, defying the most powerful fleet in the stars. Rumors spread in hidden corners. Maybe humans were not prey, maybe humans were something else entirely. In the alien command halls, unease grew. Reports poured in of mounting losses, of weapons failing, of human tactics that made no sense. Commanders argued, their voices sharp, their pride wounded. They had crushed empires larger than Earth without effort. How could this single planet resist? How could these fragile creatures, still primitive by galactic standards, fight with such ferocity? They had made a mistake. They had shown humanity pain, and instead of breaking, humanity had learned to weaponize it. On Earth, the unity deepened. Nations that had once been rivals now shared resources without hesitation. Scientists from opposite sides of old conflicts stood shoulder to shoulder in underground labs. Engineers welded armor onto ships as children delivered them food and water. Humanity was no longer divided. The world was one because it had no choice but to be one, and in that unity lay something terrifying. Humans had always been dangerous to themselves, capable of horrors and brilliance alike. Now, with all of that focus aimed outward, they became something new, something the galaxy had never seen. The turning point came in silence. A human strike team managed to board a damaged alien vessel. They returned with stolen technology, weapons, and data. In hours, human engineers began to reshape what they had taken, bending alien knowledge to human will. Within days, the first hybrid weapons were built. When tested, they cut through alien shields like knives through paper. The next battle told the story. Human ships, once fragile, now struck with precision. Alien cruisers that had dominated the skies fell in burning pieces. For every loss, humanity returned double. The aliens, who had come to teach Earth obedience, now tasted fear, and still, humanity laughed. Pilots went into missions cracking jokes. Soldiers painted mocking words on their armor. Even in the face of overwhelming death, humans found humor, and that humor made them unstoppable. How do you defeat an enemy who refuses to fear you? How do you crush a species that finds strength in its own destruction? The aliens had no answer. As the days passed, the war dragged on. Earth was scarred, yes, cities damaged, people lost, but Earth was still alive, still defiant. And above, the once unstoppable fleet was shrinking. The Alliance had not expected a war, they had expected submission. Instead, they had stumbled into a firestorm, and somewhere in the vast silence of space, the galaxy began to realize a truth that the Alliance could not admit. Humanity was not just resisting. Humanity was turning the tide. They had picked the wrong enemy, and the cost of that mistake had only begun. The war had raged longer than anyone expected. Earth was bruised, scarred, and burning in places, but it was still standing. Cities rebuilt even as the fighting continued. Families buried their dead but sent their children to factories, to training. To serve the world had changed forever. Humanity was no longer fighting for survival, which was fighting for respect for its place in the galaxy. Above, the once proud fleet of the Alliance now hung in ruin. Carriers that had once glowed like stars were broken husks, drifting silently through orbit. Cruisers cracked apart, their remains falling into Earth's atmosphere like dying meteors. Only a fraction of the massive armada remained, and those survivors bore wounds that could never be hidden. Inside the command chambers of the aliens, fear had replaced arrogance. Reports of human attacks no longer came as surprises. Every day brought fresh humiliation, fresh losses. What was meant to be a lesson for Earth had turned into a nightmare for the Alliance. And yet, still, the humans fought. Even when outnumbered, even when overpowered, they refused to kneel. The final battle began with silence. No announcements, no threats, only the slow advance of the last alien carrier, the largest of them all. Its surface glowed with weapon ports, each one capable of burning countenance. If it succeeded, Earth would fall. On the ground, people gathered in silence to watch. They stood in fields, on rooftops, in shattered city streets. Their eyes turned upward to the massive shape blotting out the stars. Children clung to their parents. Soldiers clutched their weapons. Everyone knew this was it, the last move, the end game. Human fleets launched, battered but determined. They rose from hidden bases, from hangars carved into mountains, from ocean platforms that had waited for this moment. Their engines blazed as they climbed into orbit, hundreds of ships carrying the last hope of a planet. They were small, fragile, scarred from countless battles, but they were not afraid. The alien carrier opened fire. Beams of energy sliced through the void, burning human ships into dust. The sky above Earth filled with light, bright enough to turn night into day. Yet even as vessels exploded, the rest pressed forward, weaving through the chaos, striking wherever they could. Missiles and railguns hammered the carrier shields, layer after layer cracking beneath the relentless assault. On Earth, command centers shouted updates, their voices desperate but firm. Shields weakening, keep the pressure. Pilots screamed their last words into radios before vanishing into fire. Still, more ships filled the gaps, more soldiers carried the fight onward. Humanity had never been about strength alone. It was about refusal to break, refusal to bow, refusal to stop. Then, the moment came. A strike team of human bombers broke through a gap in the shields. They flew directly into the carrier's shadow, their hulls glowing red from the heat. Inside, the pilots exchanged no words. They knew this mission meant death. But they also knew what it meant for Earth. They launched everything: torpedoes, explosives, stolen alien technology repurposed into weapons. The explosions ripped through the belly of the carrier, tearing open its heart. Fire erupted across its length, lights flickered and died. For the first time, the monster groaned like a wounded beast. The people of Earth saw it. They saw the giant falter. Cheers erupted across the world, screams of joy mixing with tears. The impossible was happening. The invincible was falling. The carrier, desperate, tried to retreat. Engines flared as it pulled back, but Earth was not finished. Human ships swarmed, tearing into the broken vessel. Railgun projectiles, missiles, and beams struck again and again until the massive ship cracked apart. Pieces the size of mountains tumbled through space, burning as they entered the atmosphere. The largest wreckage fell into the ocean with a thunder that shook the seas. Waves rose higher than towers, but humanity did not care. They had done it. The last carrier was gone. The fleet was broken. In orbit, the surviving alien ships turned and fled. Their commanders no longer spoke of punishment or obedience. They spoke only of survival. The Alliance had been humiliated, and the entire galaxy had seen it. From Earth, a final message was broadcast, carried on every frequency, pushed deep into the stars. The voice was calm, steady, and unshakable. We are not your soldiers. We are not your slaves. If you come for Earth again, you will not leave alive. The words echoed through the void. They reached the broken commanders of the fleeing fleet. They reached listening stations across alien worlds. They reached the ears of species who had never dared to resist. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy felt something it had long forgotten: hope. The war was over. Humanity had won, not with superior strength, not with endless fleets, but with defiance, cunning, and the unbreakable will to survive. The Alliance had chosen Earth to be an example, but instead, Earth became a warning dot in the ruins of cities. People celebrated. Soldiers returned to their families. Children pointed to the sky not with fear, but with pride. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy, not as servants, but as something far more dangerous. The wrong enemy had been chosen, and now the stars themselves would never forget it.